Good day, ladies and gents. My name is Arlene Smith, a social work specialist at Community Mediation Services Division. And I have the opportunity today to really discuss a sensitive topic on this workshop day 2, on separation and the impact on the parent or respective parents. I recently learned a quote from Dr. Ian Cummins that say, your perception alters your reception. What does that mean? How we see a thing determines how we receive a thing. And when we talk about impact marks the effects or the influence of something on us. So for some of us, when we experience something as sensitive as separation or divorce, we may find that we feel that the wind is knocked out of us like a punch bag, the effects. But for some of us, for others, and I say us, and I've never walked this road, but just through the clinical experiences and personal experiences from others, I see the effects where people feel like it was literally their world was topsy-turvy. It's a term we'll say in Trinidad and Tobago. All hell break loose. But then there are others who see it as an influence, breaking the cycle, breaking the toxic patterns, breaking the family dysfunction. So when we talk about impact, it is not always the same for all individuals. So let's talk about this impact. Often, persons said that separation or divorce can only be compared to death. Some persons define it as they feel like the death of their partner. Others may say it is freedom from pain. It is over. Some people may say, I am free at last. Some say, did I fail? They ask the question, did I fail? Who did I fail? And does true love truly exist? The question, does true love truly exist? So today we're going to be journeying when separation or divorce takes place. How do we now define ourselves and redefine? Before an individual before they can redefine their identity, they first have to do this needs assessment, define where they at. And defining self, it's a very integral part of human existence. Ever so often, through our stages and seasons of life, we will always have to define ourselves and redefine ourselves. Have I lost my identity? What is my identity? Do I recall what it was being single? Or is it at the fore of my memory? I could imagine and remember those single days and I'm anxious to get back there. Is it, who am I as a single person? Is it the end or is it the beginning? Am I relieved from the stress? These are important questions when we are defining ourselves, where we act in every stage of our life, because it helps us to determine, do I need help? And if I do, what kind of help? Where I need help? Why I need help? Where? So these are these questions that persons ask whenever they are going through a phenomenal or a paradigm shift. If it's an adversity, whether it's success or adversity, we ask ourselves these questions. What do we need at this junction? So today I have the opportunity that we'll be going through the theory. And I know my colleague may have mentioned some of it yesterday, but I have to go through with us. What is the theory? What happens? What's the impact when my relationship is over? The divorce, the separation. Now, one thing is certain with all human beings is that we go through grief. Yeah, we go through grief. We may define it differently, we may respond differently, but we go through grief. Some persons, if not most persons, go through acute grief. What is acute grief? The fact that this thing is over, like a death. I'm no longer with this person. Life is going to change. Am I prepared for that change? Or am I just so excited and overwhelmed? And some people are enthusiastic. I remember seeing this little video the other day. And, before, when you would look at the traditional way how we celebrate things, you would have had these cans to the back of the car and it would have had just got married. And I saw on Facebook where someone had decants to the back of a vintage car, and it said, I've just been divorced. And there was a celebration, and people were looking so perplexed, and some people were laughing and cheering on. So persons respond differently when they face an adversity. But we all go through this acute grief because we experience a loss. For some persons, they go through ambiguous grief. They can't believe they have experienced a loss. I never envisioned this relationship, this romance coming to an end. And whenever, either acute, where sometimes we accept that it was coming, I know it was coming, though I will still feel I'm prepared for it, I'm glad it happened, but I'm still going to go through these emotional experiences. So there's where I'm going to journey with you today. The 5 stages of grief. Now I want you to know that in this cycle of grief, some persons say I've never been in any one of those stages. But through my clinical experience, many persons have experienced 1 out of the 5 or 5 out of the 5 or thereabout. So some persons may go through the denial. I can't believe that we have reached here. I can't believe it is over. It's hard to accept it. My investment, my sacrifice, the years, my expectation. So they are in this place where I am in denial. It's like, when did all this happen? And sometimes persons experience this who have not even been separated or divorced, but during the stages of development of relationship, sometimes it's hard to accept where we act in a conflict. And there are some persons, according to Kubler-Ross, Dr. Kubler-Ross, she did this research with persons who were dealing with terminal illness. And she identified that when they have now accepted this loss, some persons experience anger. They become angry. Now, anger is manifest differently for different persons. There are some persons with anger, they may experience this internal pain where they're screaming on the inside, but they have on a facade on the outside, like it is well. I'm not wearing my reality kind of approach. But there are some persons who become very external and very agitated and very angry and very overwhelmed, and they may have outbursts. So that is stage 2. Remember, it don't necessarily go simultaneously in this order, but you may have experienced it. Some people experience this bargaining stage, the 3rd stage. And in the bargaining stage is where it is defined that some persons experience guilt and shame. They question themselves, where did I go wrong? Is it something physically about me? Is it I'm no longer attractive? Did I do something wrong? Who did I fail? These perplexed questions. And what her studies show is when these perplexed questions are unable to be answered or even answered, some persons experience depression. And similarly, like anger, depression have these 2 phases where some people are very optimistic and they're very, very busy, but they are depressed. So I don't know, sometimes, persons would have seen a report of persons who commit suicide and they say, but I saw the person yesterday, they were happy, they were normal, what happened? So there's this masquerade, this facade, but you are really going through depression. But then there's what we expect depression to be, where persons have lost desire for life, where persons have stopped eating, they have stopped grooming themselves, they're crying a lot, but it's not the reality of how everyone experiences depression. And the 5th of her last stage is acceptance, where persons may say, I accept the inevitable. I knew it was coming to this. I knew eventually. So they go through these stages and there are triggers. So you may hear a song and it was your favorite song, or you might be eating a meal, or it might be the Christmas occasion, or things that you would have done together as a couple. And whenever those times and seasons come, you may have a brief grief. So this brief acute grief of saying, wow, this is what we used to do. This is what, or there are some people who the triggers are trauma, that they still have these fear factors if it was an abusive relationship. So they may hear someone shout and they may get this fear factor. So these are experiences that people do. And it is very important for us to discuss it because these are some of the impact That again, it either it could take the wind out of you, the effect of a punch bag, or the effect of influence, where you say, some people may say, despite what I feel and what I'm going through, I've broken the cycle. So I hope that this was meaningful, because we had to address the grief aspect. Now remember, I told you we are doing defining and then redefining. Now that we are divorced and I'm separating, I'm going to use a perspective that I use clinically, which is, it is called a biopsychosocial spiritual perspective. It looks at the holistic being. It looks at all facets of your life. So now this has happened. What is the impact on my biological? Now I want to use biological, but through the lens of biological and physical. Biological. How do we deal with grief? How does my family deal with grief? What do we do? What is predisposed in our DNA? Some people may have healthy patterns. They may go for counseling. They may go and get spiritual counseling. They may just have the support of family members rallying, and they have this kind of predisposed. This is how we deal with adversity in a very healthy way. However, there are some families that predispose, we deal with it very unhealthy. So the impact on that person might be, let's drink, let's take drugs, let's have risky behaviors, let's party hard. So these are the biological things through predisposed lens. But then there's the physical. How does have this affected me? Is my stress level, levels of anxiety? Am I now suffering with high blood pressure? Am I diabetic because different lifestyle diseases? I have been binge eating. I've been eating a lot of sweets, and now it's affecting my diabetes. So how is it affecting my body? All these are impact on an individual who have experienced separation or divorce. The other is the psychological impact. The thinking part, the thinking part. We think a lot. And the thinking affects, because everything have an effect and an impact on my emotions and my behavior. So do I feel rejected? Do I feel abandoned? Have I been abandoned? How do I feel? How am I processing this through my cognitive? How am I thinking through this? And you see, despite how you think through this, it produces an emotion. Am I happy? It's over. Thank God. I don't have to deal with this person again. But am I angry? What about the investment, the house, the children, the years, the best part of my life I've lost? How do I interpret that? And how do I interpret it emotionally? Because remember, your perception alters your reception. And however we feel emotionally produces a behavior. Am I agitated? Do I isolate myself? Whenever I think through these processes, how do I feel emotionally and how do I respond? Am I very high energy, or am I feeling depleted? I'm just feeling like all the wind. I feel like, wow, I'm dying slowly. So it is important for us to define psychologically, what are we thinking about? Yeah, this is for all of us in all seasons. And then socially, this is a big thing. Now that I'm separated or divorced, what's my social class? Has my social class changed? Do I go from upper to lower? Do I go from middle to lower? Am I in a position that I'm independent to sustain my social class? How do my friends and family, could I go and hang out where I used to hang out? Am I now included or am I excluded? What's the culture with divorcee or separation? What about the finances? Does things change? Does my standard of living change? Does my luxury change? These are real questions that we have to ask ourselves. What's the culture like in my society, socially, or in my ethnicity and my race? Is separation part of the process? Am I now going to be excluded? Or is it the culture of, well, we don't get married. Our family don't get married. Me, you was trying. So that person might feel, well, oh, I'm going back to the social norm. But what about the family who did the matriarchs and the patriarchs, and marriage is something that people get married for 50 years and over. We don't separate. We don't get divorced. What's this? How am I now defined when I go through this? Some people may say I've called it on myself, but what about if I've been a victim? I didn't ask for this, but it happened. So that's socially. Remember, we are still defining ourselves. What about spiritually? All of our faith. How do I perceive my Creator? Did He fail me? Do I have faith that He will see me through this? Do I have unbelief and disbelief? Have I given up? What about some denominations who don't believe in marrying divorcee or people who have been separated? What does that mean for me? Is it that my life is over? Can I start over? So these are real questions that before we think about moving on, these are reflective things that we really have to ponder on. So whenever you see teachers sit up, or you go to the doctor's office and you see this sit up, this is really a serious time. And I'm going to go through this theory for you because this is really, really important aspect as we continue to define. Once you have been defined, I want you to know it's like you're going to make a meal and you have a recipe. And once you have all the ingredients on the counter, making that dish becomes really easy. So you don't have to be spinning and running. So this is the part where we really have to, I can't escape this. It's important. It's foundational. And you really couldn't do any of our CP or any of our program or co-parenting if we did not speak about Erik Erikson's stages of development. And today, what I'm going to do is use this model because to talk about social interactions, to talk about moving from one place to another place in our life, moving from the shift. It's like a dance, the pivot. You really can't do that pivot without Erik Erikson. He is coined the identity crisis man. So we're going to go through this, and you would have been through this. And he talks about, every stage of life, sometimes there is regression for all of us. You go through regression. And sometimes pathology, where you feel like the victim. You really feel victimized. But then he said it's also a place of virtue and goals where some people pivot and it's the best dance after. The really best dance. So this is important. So let's go through this. Now, often when we go through any stage of development, or especially through separation and divorce, I'm going to use it in this context. So I'm going to use applied his approach. We now need to know, how do we see life? How do we see others? So one of the first stages that he spoke of from newborn to toddler, 2 years, is this place of trust versus mistrust. And I'm going to use these stages because I want you to take a pen and paper and I want you to ask yourself where really I'm at in this stage of development. Am I in that place where I could trust other people? Or do I now define everyone as mistrust? And it triggers a childhood memory when you say, as long as I could remember myself, I really couldn't trust anyone. So for some people, when we're doing this, I want you to go through these 8 stages and define where you at. And I'm telling you, it's going to give you a roadmap on what you need to get done. What about autonomy? Am I going through autonomy that, yes, I've been separated, yes, I've been divorced, but you know what? I know who I am, and I have the autonomy to keep going, to be the best person ever. Or do I feel shame? So that is his stage 2. That is, children go through that where they are very active and independent, or sometimes they feel ashamed. So where are you there? That's stage 2. What about initiative versus guilt? Am I in a place now where I could make some healthy initiative? I could plan, I could replan my family, I could replan my life. Or is there this place of guilt where I feel I'm incapable of? So that is stage 3. What about, let's go to stage 4. Am I very industrious? Some people become very industrious. They work in, they go into work, they functioning well, they partying, having a, oh, they're very industrious, but they could be doing it unhealthily. Or some people are doing it very healthy. They go through the process. They know they have to heal. They go and get therapy. They talk about it. Oh, am I feeling inferior? Would anyone love somebody like me again? Would they accept me if I have children? Do people look at me as a failure and they feel inferior? How do you feel? You need to identify how you feel. What about this is the stage, most persons, they talk about these teenagers and adolescents. And according to Erickson, identity versus role confusion. And some people say these young people don't even know what they want. But do you know when we go through divorce and separation, we go through that stage again where, who am I? And do I have a role confusion knowing who am I? Or I can't define myself? You can, and I want you to be really honest about this. Do I feel like I continue to have integrity? Or I don't have integrity because of what has happened? Or do I feel isolated? Remember when we discussed about social class and how do people me according to my culture, my ethnicity, or my race? So how do I see myself? Do I have integrity? Would I be respected now, or am I rejected? But some persons, this is very important because as you redefine yourself, the last three, meaning, do I feel stagnant or generativity? That, you know what, yes, I've been through this, but I don't have to wear my pain. I've healed, but when I heal, now I could influence because I could talk about what I've learned and I could change the narrative. So for some persons, they may not be able to do that on their own. They may need the support, therapy of your spiritual head to guide you through this generativity, just like genes. Can I live again? Can I be revitalized? Is it well? Is it my best life after? Because you see, at that stage, it's really important what happens next. Do I have my ego integrity? Where some persons, they go on to have healthy, very healthy relationship. They say they meet the soulmate. Some people say, you know what? I thought that was my soulmate. But guess what? I've met my soulmate. Some people have healthy relationships with their co-parent or the ex-partner. They become great friends. They realize that, you know what? They were compatible at that in the early stages of their life. But now they have truly found compatibility at this stage of their life. So some persons, they go through with ego integrity and they move on healthily, where some people could spend the rest of their life in despair. And Erik Erikson, the social interactionist, he says that, you know what, we can't escape these stages of development through human existence. And yes, there are times we all regress. And there are times the pathology of it, we feel victim. We feel like a victim, the post-traumatic stress of it. But there are also many times when we get the therapeutic intervention, the virtues and the goals and the success that lies ahead. So when we reach at this place is where now we are best able now to redefine ourselves. I hope it's a good journey. What's redefining now? Now that I've done my assessment, what have I learned from this experience? Or not? What have I not learned? Can I now boost my self-esteem? Prioritizing my needs and wants. Now I need to again redefine, reprioritize what's my need, what my wants, what they are, how important they are, how do I factor in the children in it, as an individual growth. So this is the good part. This is the part where you can now set goals because you have a clear projection of what it is. So now you could do a roadmap. They call it mind mapping. And you can now go towards setting goals and achieving them. And most of all, it's about self-care. You must take care of yourself. So let's journey through as I'm about to leave some nuggets. I call them wisdom nugget number 1. Experience is your best teacher. There are some things, only when you experience it, you know it. But I want you to remember that these experiences could work for you. They can. Experience of pain and guilt can appropriately work for you. I'm not advocating for abuse. I'm not advocating, but what you have experienced could now navigate you in the choices that you have to make with setting goals. Understanding. So it have its place. The memory of it somewhat, not the post-traumatic stress of it, but the memory of it can now help navigate us and guide us on what to do. Guess what? What not to do. So it's a powerful tool, pain and guilt, as it lights the areas of our areas of, sometimes people say the shortcoming, areas that needs focus, areas of where we may have failed with our personal integrity, but it is a guide that we will know where we would like to go next. Nugget number 2, don't stay down. Don't stay down. We may fall down, don't stay down. Get back up. The point is you could win the race, but if you stay down, the probability or the possibility becomes nil. But you could get back up and you could get a second win and you could run your best race to the finish line. But that will only be possible when we learn how to forgive ourselves. Forgiveness of yourself is important. When you could forgive yourself, say, you know what? I had to write this and I want to read it for you. They said that self-forgiveness is the key component of self-compassion. And when you forgive yourself, you acknowledge your mistakes and the unfortunate decisions or experience you have faced. And you know what? It helps us to know that we are all human. It's a human thing. It's not a your thing or my thing. It's a human thing. Then you can look at the future without letting your mistakes or your decisions define you. So grant yourself the love and kindness by accepting yourself that, you know what? We are not perfect, but it's a work in progress. Please forgive yourself. Nugget number 3. We have one more to go. You are not alone. I want you to look at yourself. I want you to tell yourself. If you are sitting in a room with someone as you are looking at this, look at that person. Look in the mirror and said, you are not alone. There are people who care about you. There are people that you could talk to. There are people within your environment, in your circle that you can trust. In times of vulnerability, we go to the persons that we can trust, not the persons that we can't trust. That wouldn't be wise. But most of all, because they could empathize with you, they could hug you, you could be real, you could be your authentic self. You know, sometimes you could just be bawling down the place. It's okay. They cover you. They overshadow you. They protect you. But most of all, if you think that you need professional help, for example, you could call us and you could set your appointment and start the process. Some people may need simultaneous. They may go to their spiritual heads and they could have this nice duo, this nice dance to pivot. So they may need the spiritual support and strength, but you will need the professional intervention to navigate you through all that you have defined, to set goals to redefine. And nugget number 4, self-love is key. Yeah, self-love is key. You must see yourself like a product. And if you are not convinced, how can someone else be convinced that this product is authentic? So you must be your first champion. You must clap at yourself. You must love yourself. What it means, that there are times that we are bruised. We may fall. The wind may be punched out of us. But I want you to know, until you move forward, you got to heal. Yeah, you have to recover. Don't feel moving forward without this process. It would not be healthy. And you got to recalibrate. So I want you to see it like a sportsman. He needs to calculate. As fast as he may be doing it, he have already calculated the move. So heal, recover, and recalibrate before you move on. Self-care. Self-care is important. May it be grooming, may it be hanging out with your friends, may it be volunteering. Mindfulness, meditation, just sitting and meditating and empowering yourself through your faith and your creator. Proper nutrition. Oh, we need that. I'm pinching myself. Exercise, proper nutrition. And remember, it is impossible to love others. It is impossible to love others if you don't first love yourself. So I want to leave you with this. the importance of healing. I want you to hear it clear. Don't go into a rebound relationship and feel that is the medicine, the prescription for your solution. No, no, no. I want you to heal. And this is why you need to heal, because you need to influence. And I saw this quote by Anonymous. It means that no one owns it, so I'm taking it, but I'll say it's by Anonymous. Heal. Because we have children who deserve the best version of us. I could say it another way. Because we have children who do not deserve the broken version of us. We want to change the narrative and the pattern. That's why impact is also influence. Thank you, ladies and gents, for this opportunity. And are there any questions?